Hi, everybody. You are listening to Judging Meghan with your host, Meghan Judge. Okay, I'm going to start with this. It is Mental Health Awareness Month. I have an amazing guest that I'm going to talk to today. I hate to say I'm excited because when I met her, I just said, I'm so excited to talk to you, but I really believe that I'm supposed to talk to her today. I don't think there's anything other than sometimes talking through hard things, coincidences, that kind of stuff. I believe in all of that stuff. And I believe that there's reasons why we meet and talk to people. And that's why I love doing my podcast. And I love all my listeners that listen every week. Thank you guys. I'm going to say this. So I've been thinking a lot because I'm of that age where you wake up in the middle of the night and I think about life because my brain really never stops. And so I started thinking about, am I a bad person? And I know that that's a odd thing to say, but I think there's so much on social media and Instagram and TikTok, all of this stuff where it's like, I am a good person and here's why I'm a good person. And this is what you need to do. And I'm doing this and I'm doing that. But honestly, I think sometimes I'm a bad person. And I don't mean that in a way to get attention from anyone. So they'll be like, oh, no, you're not. You're so great. Because sometimes I'm not. And let me give you an example. My guest is looking at me like I'm a crazy person. So I went, and I'm going to tell you this too, Joanne. So I went through this really bad friend breakup, and these women this was years ago. They just destroyed my soul. Truly, truly took me to my breaking point. This happened around 2020. And there's one or two in particular out of this group, but one really that just trashed me all over town. She used to be my friend. I live in Manhattan Beach, California. It's a very small town. And I don't really ever see her. And if I do, I'll walk right by her and pretend like I don't even know who she is. And she's done mean things to other people in my community, really mean things. And so on this particular day, I was walking by her and something in me said, you need to say something really mean. I don't know if it was hormones or if it was just like, Meghan, here is your shot to get back at her. Go for it. And so she walked by me and I said something not very nice. And then I, for a second, went, oh my God, that was the greatest thing ever. In my head, I felt like I won the lottery because I finally got to give it right back to her for all the years of trash talking me and all the things she's done to me. And then, hello, your conscience comes into your body at some point. And that night I was trying to go to bed and I said, why did I do that? That's really not good. She's just going to go back to those other women and say, she's crazy. She's a bad person. Look what she did. What is wrong with her? And then the whole cycle is going to start all over again. And hello, I have a tendency to step in it. I cannot not step in it. It's just one of the things about me. So then I started thinking, what a fraud I am that I always talk about, oh, I'm a good person and I want to live my life being a good person and this is good and that is good. And honestly, I'm not a good person. Can be a really bad person sometimes. And I just started to think about this last night. And I guess the point of my story is we're all bad. And we all, even the worst, like serial killers, can have good things about them too. It's my wounded inner child. It's all the stuff that just makes me angry and can turn me into this bad person. And so I just wanted to start with that and say, I just wish there was a little bit more of that in the world where it wasn't so much of you're bad, you're good, you're either one of the two things, and there's no happy medium. Joanne, before I introduce you, do you have any thoughts or do you want to hop off right now while you're
No. Well, I don't think anybody's 100% anything, right? So you're a good person. You've just done some bad things from time to time, which makes you a human being, right?
Yes.
And a serial killer is a bad person who, even though he or she is a bad person, once in a while actually does something good. So I think to think that, and sometimes the satisfaction of just jamming somebody back is too good to pass up. I get it. But that doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you a human being.
Yeah. Well, thank you for saying that, because my ego definitely needed it. But I just think I think it's an important point. And also just sometimes to take a step back. I'm saying for myself, because I don't. And I just always step in it. I've always done this my entire life, where I get to this level and I think, oh, I'm so evolved as a human being, and I'm getting older, and look at me. And then hello, I
Boom.
just stepped in it again. Do you do this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm sailing along, coasting like I'm a good human being, and then I just screw something up and find myself apologizing for bad behavior. But it happens.
I think as long as you apologize. But again, I'm not there. I'm never apologizing. Maybe
Well, not
when
to
I'm
her. She doesn't
No.
deserve it.
No, maybe when I'm 80 years old, but I'm never, whatever. That's a whole separate podcast. Okay, everyone. Joanne Redding is already my best friend. So we'll just end the podcast at that. She is a writer. She is a former Wall Street badass. She is a master landscaper. We both lived in Greenwich at one point, Connecticut. You're my second guest in the past month that lived in Greenwich. So that's a weird connection. And she has a new book coming out on May 19th called House of Pretend. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, I don't even really know where to start with my long-winded story, but when I read your bio, I was struck by your story and some of the parallels. And I think since it is Mental Health Awareness Month, I really want to talk to you about the things you've gone through in your life. And I think the most important thing about why people come to this podcast and they listen is maybe they can relate and take something away. And that's my goal with every podcast that I do, is that the stories like yours are only, by you sharing, by you writing the book, are only going to help somebody else out there. So I would love for you to start with your childhood and tell me a little bit about yourself.
I was born in Brooklyn. My father passed away when I was 6. And we were left, I have 2 siblings, and we were left with my mother, who was just emotionally absent. She really had no emotional capacity at all. And when my father passed away, she never spoke of him again. It was as though the man never existed. So we were not allowed to grieve. We weren't allowed to talk about him. We never mentioned his name again. It was as though he went to work that night and fell off the face of the earth, and that was it. And it was 10 years before I spoke of him to her again. And being left with her was just horrific. She had no capacity for love. She was a narcissist. She had, we think, some borderline personality disorder. She struggled with mental illness. And I think she came from a family, her mother was very emotionally absent as well. So growing up, it was, it was loss upon loss, right? It wasn't just the loss of my father. It was the loss of a parent. It was the loss of a family. We didn't have anybody that sort of stepped in to help, which is why the name of the book is House of Pretend, because we all pretended as though everything was okay. My mother was very able to step out the front door and say what she was supposed to say, be witty. She was very smart, be witty, be funny, and be charming to people. But it was a surface thing that when she came back into the apartment, it was shut off, and she was just an absent vessel, really. So I think, the loss was of everything. It was of a family. It was of having somebody to talk to. It was compounded and acknowledged a couple days after my father's death, when my mother sat me down and said to me, at age 6, you've got to take care of yourself from now on. She was basically like, you're on your own. And at the time, you think, well, what happens if I mess it up and I don't brush my hair well enough, or I forget to wash my clothes? What's going to happen to me? Will I disappear like my father did? And as a kid, you spend a lot of your energy trying to figure out how to make it okay, right? So if I'm cute, or if I'm funny, or if I'm smarter, if I do better, whatever, you just want to get acknowledged. But in the house, it was kind of like, there's a quote from Elie Wiesel, who says that the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. And that's what I grew up in, an indifferent environment. She didn't care about any of us. She didn't hate us, she didn't love us, it was just nothing. And I think that's what I did was, I knew I wanted to get out of it, and I knew that there were ways out of that just from reading. But you develop a shell around yourself where you're pretty impenetrable, which is how I think I was able to do as well as I did on Wall Street. You could throw anything at me and I could take it. I could handle myself. I was totally resilient. I was capable of doing anything because I had such a long time to perfect that. But what happened to me with that loss was that I lost a piece of myself, and I found that I had no awareness of my own self-worth and what I deserved and what love looked like. So I spent a long time just accepting scraps and getting into relationships that clearly had nowhere to go, so no one could reject me, right?
Okay. I relate to so much of what you're saying. I was diagnosed with complex PTSD stemming from childhood. I lost my listeners know this, but I lost my sister at 2.
I'm aware of this.
And my dad at 13. So I know, I can't even imagine what it would be like to lose your father at 6, right? And the not being told what to do and have any sympathy, and then the way that you lost him as well.
Yes.
Is the confusion of living with what happens.
Yes.
So can you talk about that a little bit for my listeners?
Yeah, I think so. My father, he died by suicide. He jumped off the Verrazano Bridge, which is a very big bridge that spans Staten Island to Brooklyn in New York City. And when he died, we were told he had a car accident. He was in a car accident on the bridge, and, he was dead. They found his body in the river. I mean, it didn't make sense, but I was a kid. So since you never talk about it, you just really just go with that story, which I did until somebody said to me, that sounds kind of strange. And I ended up signing up for a class in college that was on death and dying. And, the professor first day said, there's a reason you took this class. You may not know what it is yet. Anyway, that led me to sending away for the birth certificate and confronting my mother about a little over 10 years after the fact. And, I finally thought it took a lot of guts to actually confront her with it, to go down with the certificate to say what happened. And instead of getting any sort of, oh my God, I'm so sorry, we should have talked about this, what happened, she started beating me with an umbrella and screaming, it's none of your business. I wanted to go to my grave with this. And I just thought, wow, there's no way of getting through to her. And, it took me, I think, a long time as a kid. Again, you think it's somehow your fault. Mm-hmm. And then at a certain point in your life, you are angry at her, certainly angry at her, and angry at him, the loss of all that you lost, just loss upon loss upon loss. But then you get to a point in life where you have your own problems and your own issues, and you realize that, in the years where I was of an age where I could be cognizant of what was going on, I could get help, right? I could call somebody, I could see a therapist, I could talk it through, you could get therapy. I did some trauma therapy that was extremely effective, helpful. You realize it's not people aren't rejecting you. It has nothing to do with you most of the time, right? But when you grow up as I did, you think it's all your fault somehow. But it allows you to forgive people and to understand that mental illness is not a choice, and that my mother and father both would never have chosen the life that they were dealt, the hands that they were dealt, if they could have had an option. And unfortunately, they lived in a time when mental health was not discussed. People were ashamed of it. It wasn't viewed as a disease like a physical disease, and it is. And people, in particular, suicide, addiction, these are diseases that a lot of people feel such shame around. And there's nothing to be ashamed of. It's an illness that you can get help for, and there are choices and there are options. And I think when you're dealing with someone who's suffering, reach out. It boggles my mind that no one ever came to us when we were growing up to say, hey, how can we help? At school, like no one. And I think that for me, the two things that I think are important are understanding in yourself, even if you in your darkest moment. I remember having a very dark period myself and thinking about my father and thinking about the path he took, and just realizing that if he had just gotten on a flight to California, if he had just, gotten in a car and driven somewhere and started a new life, he'd be alive. So I think when you're a child of suicide or you're surrounded by mental health issues, it's an option in your head because it exists, you've experienced it, but you also realize the finality of it and how unnecessary it is. If you can get help, you will be better, and you need to just reach out and call somebody.
I think that's such an important point, because I'm very honest with my own struggles, and I think I've read books. I can't remember whose book it is, but it's about. I think it's Kevin Hines. I don't know if you're familiar. And it talks about people unaliving themselves off, like jumping off the San Francisco bridge. And the statistic is the people, do you know this book?
With the fence.
Yeah.
The fence?
I don't know, but the statistic is the people that jump, the ones that have survived,
Yes.
Almost all of them say, what did I do the second their hands are released from the bridge? Is that what you are
Yes,
thinking
and,
of?
and I mentioned actually in my book, there's a study that they put up an 18-inch fence or a 2-foot fence, something you could easily climb over. And the rate of suicide on the Golden Gate Bridge dropped precipitously because it gave people a moment to pause. And just that moment of pause made them reevaluate what they were doing and change their minds. And that
But
was
I think that's a huge point because it's so important what you said. It's also like if you have it, if it's something that's affected your own life, whether you've lost somebody to suicide, it does. It lives in your head, and
Absolutely.
you go, well, maybe they did it, so maybe, and it's the constant. So I think that's why it's so important, and I'm so grateful that you're vocal about it. Because it's also the other side of it too is a dark secret where people don't want to admit that that's what happened.
Yes.
And that is a respect thing that maybe people are just not ready to talk about it, or maybe there's all different reasons behind it. Right?
Yeah, I think though by not talking about it just makes it more of a shameful thing. And I think that really the only way for someone who's struggling to actually have the wherewithal to pick up the phone is by hearing that other people feel that way too, that it is not just them and that it can change and it will change. You just, you think there's no hope. You think nobody cares. You whatever it is that's in your head, that you just need to get to the next day. My brother ended up dying by suicide as well.
Yeah.
And, clearly that was a result of, again, us never having any outlet for our feelings and our grief. And my brother sadly tried to self-medicate them away, and that never worked. And, he did reach out for help at the end. He actually reached out to my mother, and my mother turned him down.
So what is that? I know that you talk, the book's title, The House of Pretend, which, that's the best title ever, sorry. But I understand it when you're living almost like everything's going to be okay, and going through the motions of going to school, and people not understand, almost like too, don't you think, being so young, that people don't know the right things to say to a kid.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I'm saying outsiders, and I mean your
Yes,
mom definitely obviously had, she's sick, so she didn't obviously know how to deal with it, but I'm saying it's almost like people, I talk a lot about grief and loss, and people never know the right thing to say. So sometimes there's just the avoidance of not talking about it at all.
absolutely. They don't want to get
Right?
involved. They don't.
Yeah,
They don't
yeah,
want to get
yeah.
involved. They don't want to make the call. They don't want to pick up the phone. You know.
Mm-hmm.
I think though. The has to pretend thing. I haven't spoken about this before, but what's been interesting to me is on Facebook, there are some people that are from the street where I grew up on, right? And I left there. I was 9 when we moved. So, and one of the things, and I do talk about this in the book, is my mother used to take us to the beach, right? That was the thing that she would do. And when I wrote that, I had written this memoir, and they were very encouraging. A couple of them were very encouraging. And one of them said, "Oh, we loved your mom. She'd take us to the beach. She was the best." And I sat there and thought, wow, you had no idea. I mean, the pretend was great. We really pretended well, it was very helpful for, like I said, getting jobs and getting through life. I pretended I was totally fine all the time.
So let's kind of jump ahead. So you led this life. I can relate because I talk about, I was an actress when I was young. And so I was super into theater. And P.S., just to make you laugh, do you know what I made up my stage name as when I was 3?
What?
Joanne.
I'll get out of here.
I swear to God. And to make you laugh even harder, it is when I was young and I would go to bars, and people would ask me my name, and I would say Joanne. Like, I'm talking about men hitting on you. So it was my code, my late night alter
Are you
ego.
Joanne in Starbucks? Do you use that?
No, I'm Meghan, spelled wrong in Starbucks. But
You're right.
but it's the what I was trying to say is all the pretend stuff of feeling the shame and the guilt and all of that stuff is, I think, so relatable for people to feel that have gone through these kinds of things in early childhood. Obviously, your brain at 6 years old, you were an ace, and being able to go through your life I was living in a character, and I would escape into my closet or into different characters to try and just escape out of what I was living with in my life. And I think
Yeah.
it's a really common thing. So skipping ahead into your adulthood, getting to a place like Wall Street, my God, as a woman too,
Yes.
that is, number one, impressive. Number
Thank you.
two, something that I think you said, your bio said you worked on Wall Street for 15 years. It's I also worked in a male dominated industry in the automotive advertising business. So it was all men, and you kind of have to morph yourself into whatever you need to be to get through these conversations without being, number one, sexually harassed. Number two, right? So tell me about that.
Yeah, I definitely was totally prepared for putting up with any kind of crap that came my way. It was the time on Wall Street when you could expense strip clubs. I mean, so the environment, it was just very, very, very masculine. And, I could roll with anything. I mean, nothing bothered me. No abuse bothered me. You could call me anything and it didn't matter. I didn't care. I had this shell, which was great. I enjoyed it. It worked for me. And, there's been some discussion as to did I only, because my other jobs have been kind of male industry oriented. Why was that? And, it's been speculated the whole father figure thing, right? Looking for a father figure for my father. And that there may be something to that. And it may be that avoiding the female, right? Because of my mother. So I don't really know. But the thing that did, I think, become apparent that I always felt, as you said, you put this character on, right? And you are this impenetrable, tough person. You don't have anything. There's nothing that ever happened to you that was bad, right? And you can't even let a crack of it through, because if you let a little bit through, it'll just explode. I remember crying once something triggered me, and I started to feel like I was going to cry, and I realized I couldn't, because if I did, I'd never stop. I was afraid I'd never be able to stop. So I think at a certain point for me, I realized that my coping, my having relationships that clearly were never going to go anywhere, because I didn't want anybody to ever reject me, right? So you do that, I don't know what love looked like, so you just take whatever little bits you think sex is love, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And then you have something happen, a catalyst happens where I had a boss who offered me $1 million to have his baby. I had fell what I thought was in love with this man, and it wasn't going to work out, and it didn't. And then you sort of realize, you come to the realization that, yes, this shell has been great, and it's protected me, and it's been great for work. But for my own person, I go home alone at night, and no one really knows me. No one really knows the me that's inside. And that probably was the hardest thing, was to open up and risk people seeing that you were damaged, and, risk rejection all over again for who you really were. That was probably the hardest thing. And that, I think, people that deal
You're making me cry.
I'm sorry. People that deal with mental illness, whether it's themselves or their family situation, that happens a lot. You somehow feel like it's all your fault, or partially your fault, or you're tainted goods, or you're just not worthy, and you're worthy. And you have to find your voice, and you have to stand up for it. And you have to figure, you know what? As you said, you're a good person. Do some shitty things sometimes, but I'm a good person, and I deserve to be loved. And that's what you have to do in life. And you have to forgive, because it just eats away at you if you don't.
It does. I think, too, the self-reflection piece of it's almost, and I've talked about this before, that you can go through all the motions of having the great job, or pretending, sex is love. I dealt with my own weirdness in relationships when I was young, and, thankfully, I'm happily married. I don't know how that happened with all the stuff that I brought with me. So he gets kudos.
Must be a good man.
He's a great person. I don't want him to listen to this, because I'm mad at him today. I'm joking. But I think what it is I kind of had my breakdown. I talk about it in 2020, that I live in this beach town, and everything's perfect, and I have a family, and I look a certain way, and then this and this and this. And then all of a sudden, that trauma and all the things that you've gone through, and whether it be abuse, whether it be all of these things, are going to bubble up.
Yeah.
And you can run, but you cannot hide. They are going to catch up to you at some point in your life. And I say a lot, as a mother of 2 daughters, I listen and I go, oh, I'm doing such a bad job. I don't want my cycles of abuse to hit my kids. And it's hard to be a perfect parent when you're a child that comes from that, But I think what I admire so much in you is not only your strength, but what I admire in so many people that have gone through tumultuous lives and childhood, is when you actually get to the point where you say it's okay to be me, and it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important.
It is important. I just, you sweep things under the rug, and you sweep them under the rug, and they're not going anywhere. And at some point, it's going to come out somehow, some way. And I think, particularly if you're going to be a parent, or you want to be in a relationship, you can't do it really without letting that stuff go. And the only way to let go is to go through it, to just, which is interesting. I mean, I think writing, I didn't set out to write a book. The writing helped me with that. I mean, they talk about the body keeps the score, that book about trauma, and you feel it in your body. I remember when I was in a bad period, and I thought, I just got to write this down. I just want to write it down and make some sense of it. And I felt like I was vomiting in a good way, that I was getting it out of me, and it was no longer residing in my head. And I think that's, we all have secrets, and man, they'll eat you alive. They really will.
I think that writing is a form of therapy. I really do. I mean, I'm halfway through a book that's never going to come out probably because I can't.
Never say never.
No, I'm joking.
I'm here.
Well, thank you. But also having a memoir these days, that's very impressive because it's hard to do. But when I had to take a break from writing because I get what you're saying. You sit there and it's reliving these moments.
Yes.
You can't, it's almost like, it's going to be hard. Who wants to sit there and write about bad memories and then start ugly crying? I don't know.
No,
right?
Yeah. And what I find is interesting, I have a reading coming up. I have an event, and, I had a suggested passage to read. And I mean, I've read this stuff many, many, many times. I mean, it's been edited and moved, and I've read and reread and reread. And it still makes me cry.
But that's okay.
Yeah, no, I think it's okay. And maybe, maybe if I had been able to cry for the first 15 years of my life, I wouldn't be crying, but there's all that pent up crying that you just got to get out. But it is okay because it means you're feeling it, and it's normal. It's human.
So sometimes I'll tell this. I've done EMDR. I'm guessing you have too. Okay. And I love the EMDR. But sometimes I'll share the story of my sister because she died and they found her, and my listeners know. And I will go through periods of time, and I've told the story on the podcast. I've told it when I've done speaking engagements, and I won't cry. I'm told it so many times. And then all of a sudden you'll hit me on a day. I don't know what it is or what's happening, or I very much so believe in spirit. I'm spiritual and I believe in signs. I do. Mm-hmm. I just know my dad's with me. I talk about it all the time. My best friend. And it'll hit me and I'll start to cry. And sometimes I apologize to an audience if I'm telling the story. And then sometimes I just go, it's okay. Because I honestly think that crying is really, really healthy. Yes. And also it's a way to honor yourself and almost like the lack of love from your mom and the hugs that you were not given, which is a crock of shit. Sorry, but it is. I mean, that is painful in itself. Yes. You're always going to be that little girl that needed it. And so to be able to let out tears is, I believe, a kind of a gift that you're able to feel things, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's grief, right? And grief is not a linear, contained thing. Mm-mm. It has a mind of its own, right? It comes when you least expect it. As you say, something pops in and you're sobbing and you weren't 2 seconds before. It comes in waves and it changes over time maybe, but I have to say, I mean, my father's been dead a very, very long time. And every anniversary, I'm sad as shit for the whole day. It's just, it's just visceral almost, grief. But you don't know when it's going to hit you. But you gotta deal with it. You have to let it flow through and not bottle it up.
And I think that's okay. I say grief is lifelong. It is a lifelong thing that you will carry. And I think it's absolutely okay to think. I think a lot about my dad too. And I think, well, what would it have been like? What kind of grandfather would he have? I'm about to cry now. What kind of?
He's going to make me cry.
What kind of grandfather would he have been like? Would he and I be best friends? Like all this stuff, right? That you were robbed of or I was robbed of. And that, and And so for people that are listening, because a lot of people come to the podcast that are dealing with maybe fresh grief, or they're dealing with lifelong grief that they have just started to say, it's okay, I'm going to start dealing with this, because we talked a lot about the bubbling up. You can run, but you can't hide. That grief is always going to be tapping you on the shoulder, right?
Always.
So I think of it as a great honor. And I also believe that my dad can hear me, or the people that we've lost. And they just sadly your father went the way he did. And my dad suffered and died of cancer. So I just still think they're with us. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
It is strange. I do think that I feel, people that I've lost, strange things happen.
Like your brother too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a strange, and I don't understand. I'm not religious, but I don't understand the mechanism of how the universe works. But it does seem like we don't just disappear. I lost somebody very close to me maybe 2 years ago, and I got in my car, and this mourning dove came and flew down and sat on the hood of the car by the windshield wipers where they come up in the passenger side. And I'm looking, I'm like, okay, bird, you see him in the car. I started the engine, sat there. I put the windshield wipers on. I'm like, the bird needs to fly up. Sat there for a solid 5 minutes. I took a video of the bird. Like, this is just really odd. And I had been thinking about the person I had lost as I walked out and went into the car and was sitting there. And I just thought that, I felt as though my feelings had been felt, that this was some sort of sign that they hadn't forgotten us. It's odd, but I think if you can embrace that, it's helpful. It's helpful in your grief. I think it's harder if you don't have any hope for something after.
I just know there's so many, over the years doing this 6 years, and the majority of the episodes a lot of them are about grief and loss. And I always ask people what their signs are. It's just something I ask. And I told you before we recorded, I recently lost he was like my second dad. And he was on the podcast. His name, Bruce Ellis. So for my listeners, he passed away in November. He and Donna, his wife, came on the podcast in October, and I asked about the sign of they were the parents of my best friend, Julie, of, knowing that Julie was with them. Okay. And I haven't told this on the podcast yet. So listeners, if you listen to that episode with Bruce and Donna Ellis, he talks about a cardinal, seeing a cardinal, always knowing that was Julie. But he said, I asked him, how did you know that Julie was okay? And he said, he told this story about letting these balloons go. And the balloons went up into the air, and one balloon, it was like a bunch of balloons, and one balloon went another direction than all the other balloons. So recently, sorry.
That's okay.
I was driving, and all of a sudden I saw a bunch of balloons go up in the air. And I can't even remember the last time I saw helium balloons go up. So I don't know. I feel like that was his sign that he was
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
I think listeners know I talk a lot about that, because it does. It gives you hope. Right?
It does. It's grief. Grief is love, right? If you didn't love the person, you wouldn't grieve them. And I think when you love somebody and you miss them, it's nice to feel that they're missing you. They're missing you. They're still watching over you. They're still with you in spirit,
Well, let me ask you this as I ugly cry.
But as we know, we have to let these things out. So
we do. Thank you. I'm doing a lot of crying today. So the biggest takeaway on this book, because it's quite an accomplishment to be able to write a memoir and talk about all of this stuff and get it all out. And, you're always going to be dealing with healing, and it's not always, we have good days and bad days. We're human beings. Like in the beginning, I talked about doing something not very good. What is the biggest takeaway for my listeners on all of the hard things, all the things you've learned in your life that maybe if you could go back, that you would tell your young self?
I don't know if my young self could have understood the concept. There's so many. I mean, there's so many things, but I think that a really important thing is that I guess because a lot of my growing up, my self-worth was so beaten down because and I think to understand, and it's easier as you get older, that do not give the power of who you are to anyone else. Do not let how they treat you or what they may say, define you. That you are a person and you control who you are. And you are not diminished by other people thinking whatever it is they think about you. Oh, she's, her father jumped off the bridge. She's X, Y, or Z, or the shame surrounding it. It's not who you are. You are your own person, and you need to let that out and to embrace that and to be the person that you want to be. Don't let yourself be defined by your circumstances, by what your parents did or didn't do, by what life did or didn't do to you. Just grab life and make it the best you can.
And live, and I think to add to that, to live your life and start today.
Start today. And sometimes, and somebody might say, oh, that's really easy for you to say, right? How do you start today? Well, make a plan, right? My plan was I didn't want to be where I was. I got an education, got a job, got out of where I was. Just make a friend, talk to somebody, just do little by little. And as we said earlier, forgive, because forgiving frees you from the anger that you hold towards this woman who's an ass, right? Let it go. She's not worth your time.
Joanne, I'm still working on the forgiveness.
I mean, I didn't say we get this all 100%, but all of that is helpful. And I think it helps you be, the person you want to be, because life is good. Life is good.
I mean, I agree with you that it's never too late, and you're going to go backwards and you're going to go through hard things again, and then you're going to have to pull yourself up.
Yes.
I mean, it's part of life. It's good. It's never ending, right? And it's how you deal with it. And the other part that you mentioned in the beginning is that I want to just circle back to really quick is how there wasn't help for your mom or your dad. And if you're listening and you're struggling right now with your mental health, I think I'm always so grateful, because it is Mental Health Awareness Month, to talk about this, that we do have so many resources now. And there are, there's therapy. And if therapy is too expensive for you, there's like colleges, and there's therapists that are in training, and you can get a deal that way. There's, 988. There's all different ways and avenues for you to find help or to talk to someone. And I can't reiterate that enough, because it's that 1 second, whether it be the bridge, and now there's the gate, the fence above the bridge. For me, it was a moment in 2020, standing at a beach when I didn't want to be here, and seeing my 2 little girls sitting on the beach, and that saved me. Right. So
I think too, for other people, recognize how important and how powerful your one action can be for somebody, right? Just be kind. Just try to be kind to people. And the people that that you love, let them know you love them. Tell them you love them, because that might just make a difference in somebody's day or somebody's life where they're feeling alone and they're feeling in their own head that they're worthless. Let them know they're not. I mean, it doesn't cost anything to try to be kind,
I love that you said that, because it's something I consciously try to do too with strangers.
Yep.
And sometimes I think, and I've talked about this before, that people are like, what is wrong with that woman? I'll sometimes go up to someone and say, because I enjoy home goods, Joanne. I don't know.
Don't we all?
I mean,
There's one near me.
Megan Judge enjoys a biweekly lap of home goods. My favorite thing. My husband does not love it, and I try really hard not to buy something, but it's an enjoyable experience for me. And the other day, I always try to find someone and go, oh, your hair looks really pretty.
Right? Nice dress. Yeah. Yeah.
And then the person turns around. This just happened, by the way, and it was my chiropractor, which is so funny. And she turns around and she goes, Megan? And I go, because I was like, your hair is so pretty. And she goes, Megan? Anyway, but it makes the person's day to see somebody light up and you have no idea what that person is going through at that exact second. And then you know what it does for you. It makes you happy.
Absolutely.
Because you just made somebody else happy. And that's the best form of therapy too. Because you could be having the worst day and just mustering out that and then making someone happy. And that's just going to lift you up, right?
And it doesn't cost a dime.
It doesn't cost a dime. Joanne, I love you. You're the best.
I love you too. We need to get together.
I know. We'll talk offline. But everyone, like we said, oh wait, really quickly. Where can people purchase the book? It comes out on May 19th.
So it's available anywhere books are sold. So Barnes & Noble, your local bookstore can get it through Simon & Schuster. It's on Amazon. It's everywhere.
Okay, I just telling you from one survivor to another, I'm really proud of you.
Thank you. I'm proud of you too.
Thank you. Everyone, there's always hope and there's always help. Keep going. You matter. Your story matters.
Judging Meghan with Meghan Judge.